Third try's the charm. I just can't seem to get the camera recording, but we seem to be recording now. Hi, my name is Adriana, and today I will be doing the Mid-Year Freakout book tag. This tag, pretty ubiquitous on BookTube. Basically everybody does it. It's a great tag. It's a great chance to look back at what you've read throughout the year, and like everybody else, I am amazed that we are halfway through the year already. Kind of blowing my mind. From the day I am recording this, it's like 2 weeks till the 4th of July. And like less than a month till my week-long trip in the woods. So lots of exciting things coming up, but let's take a look back at my reading for the past 6 months and see what's up. Before I jump into the questions, please consider liking and commenting on this video and subscribing to my channel if you like bookish things. Question number 1 is the best book you've read in 2022, and the best book I believe I have read I don't actually have on me because, as always, my favorite books I tend to loan out to everyone I know. So I never actually have the physical copy when I go to talk about them on this channel, but that is Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. I just really connected with this book a lot. I mean, the author is from Idaho. I went to college in Idaho. I take a trip to Idaho several times throughout the year. I got a lot of family there, got a lot of friends there. I love the landscape of the state of Idaho. So it was really fun to read a book partially taking place in Idaho and really describing the scenery from someone who has been there, lived there, everything else. I also really love the sci-fi elements and historic fiction elements, and just there was so much good stuff in this book. A lot of themes of environmentalism and conservation, and I really enjoyed it. It took me a while to read through it, but like, I think that's okay. It's like a very slow, kind of methodical, work your way through it. I have a full review of it on my channel if you're interested, but I really enjoyed this one. The next question is best sequel you've read in 2022. I have not read many sequels, but even if I had read a lot, I still think this would be my fave, and that is, where is it? It is the Dragon Republic, the second book in the Poppy War trilogy. It's so good. I also loved like the third book, the finish to the series, but there's just something about this book. I think it just takes so much more time to explore the themes of the world. There's a lot more world building. I just felt like the first book very like plot heavy, action heavy, a lot of character building, but I just really connected with the whole world in this book and really enjoyed it. And I also have a review of the whole trilogy on my channel, as well as a nail art tutorial if you are interested. Question number 3 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to, and this one I'm a little embarrassed I haven't read it yet, but that is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. I put a hold on this from my library like the day it came out in like January, and I just kept like pushing back the hold. So like I still have it on hold from the library, but I keep pushing back the book because I like other things tend to strike my interest. So I'm just kind of waiting until I am really ready and excited to jump into it, but I really want to read it. It sounds really cool, and everybody I know who's read it has enjoyed it so far, so I really want to read it. It's just I haven't done it yet, but I want to. Question number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Like everyone else, Babel by R.F. Kuang. Very excited. I obviously loved the Poppy War trilogy. I really am excited to see what R.F. Kuang does with this kind of new genre, this kind of dark academia sort of setting. I think it'll be really cool. I really loved how she wove in some real kind of inspired history into the Poppy War trilogy, so I'd really love to see something like that in Babel, and I am very excited. I have pre-ordered this, so I will be getting a physical copy when it comes out. Other one I am so excited for is Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. I actually ordered a special edition of this one from Waterstones, so it might take me a while to get it because it has to get shipped here from the UK, but it's gonna be beautiful and I am so excited, and I think it's gonna be really dope. Natalie Haynes is a Greek mythology retelling author. She is a trained classicist, so she knows a lot about Greek mythology and has read all of these myths and stuff in their original ancient Greek and Latin, and she kind of reworks those myths into a more modern perspective, I suppose. So this one, Stone Blind, is about Medusa. Don't really know anything else besides that, but I think it'll be super dope. I think the Medusa story has a lot to offer, and I think it will be really good because I have loved everything I've read from Natalie Haynes so far. Question number 5 is biggest disappointment, and luckily, I have really not been that disappointed by anything I have read so far. Like, everything I thought I would enjoy, I have. So I've been really good about picking out books that kind of fit with me. And most of the books I've given low ratings to, like, I kind of knew probably weren't gonna be my cup of tea, but I was just, you know, stepping outside my comfort zone for a little bit. So I don't really call that a disappointment when I know I am stepping outside of my comfort zone, but this book I'm going to talk about was well within my comfort zone and just was not very good. And that is Beginners by Tom Vanderbilt. Just not very good. I read the synopsis for this one. It's kind of like a self-help-ish book. It's supposed to be kind of like an inspiring thing about not being afraid to learn new things, to try new hobbies, and it just kind of ended up feeling like some rich guy bragging about how he has access to all these really cool coaches and programs that people who work full-time in a small town don't have. So I kind of felt worse after reading this instead of like better and inspired. So that was definitely disappointing. The next question is most surprising book. This I am going to give to Comfort Me with Apples. I saw Christina from the Roomies Digest listen to this, or I think read it, for a NetGalley art, and I thought, you know, it sounded kind of interesting, so I figured I would pick it up. So I borrowed it and loved it, and then I bought a physical copy because I enjoyed it so much. And it's a kind of like Black Mirror-ish short story. It's super tiny. It's a little tiny book, but it's got a very kind of Black Mirror twist to it, kind of a magical realism vibe that I just really enjoyed more than I thought I would, I guess. Like the first, I think, hour or so, I listened to it as an audiobook. The first hour or so, I was just very confused and didn't know what was going on. And then as I started like putting the pieces together, I was like, ooh, this is very good. It's very good. So if you have, I mean, you could read this in less than a day, obviously. You could probably read this in one sitting, and it was also a really good listen if you want to pick up the audiobook. But I was very surprised at how much I like this, and I still think about it, and I'm probably going to reread it, which is why I picked up a physical copy. Question number 7 is favorite new author, and I would be remiss not to pick R.F. Kuang. I mean, like I said, best sequel I read, best series I've definitely read in 2022. I don't think I've read really any other series, but so good. I love the Poppy War, and if Babel is even half as good as the Poppy War trilogy, like, R.F. Kuang is gonna become an auto-buy author for me. Like, she can do no wrong if Babel is even enjoyable. Next question is new fictional crush, and I think for this one I'm gonna go with Camp from The Starless Crown that I read at the beginning of this year. And The Starless Crown is kind of a, I guess, journey fantasy, so a ragtag group of kids and adults going on an adventure for a MacGuffin, which pretty typical fantasy story, but it's written by one of my absolute favorite authors, James Rowlands. He has written the entire Sigma Force trilogy that I have a shrine to over here. And so typically he is more of a thriller author, or at least the past couple years he's been more of a thriller author. So this was not his debut in fantasy, but his first fantasy he's written in a long time. And I really, really enjoyed it. And getting to my fictional crush, he is the younger twin of the Prince of the Kingdom. And he's basically just kept around as like a spare until his brother has an heir to the throne. And he basically just becomes the village drunk. But through this journey with these people, he becomes like a better, more ambitious person, and I just really like him. And I was like sitting there and thinking like, why, like what specifically about him attracts me to him? And then I realized I'm about to marry an ex-frat star, so I think I just kind of have a type. Real into the frat stars. Next question is new favorite character, and I hate to keep going back to the Poppy War, but I'm going back to the Poppy War. And I loved Venka. She doesn't get a whole lot of screen time throughout the trilogy, but I don't know, it's just something about her. She's so strong and well-spoken and beautiful, and I mean, she goes through it throughout the series and just comes out the other side broken but persevering. And I just really loved her as a character. I would love to get some more background to her character. I would love to get, if R.F. Kuang ever decides to kind of go back to this series, like a spin-off with her, or a prequel, or just anything with more Venka. I'm here for it. I'm ready. Next question is a book that made you cry, and this is like probably the other best book I read. I just didn't want to talk about it in the first question because I'm talking about it now. But that is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I listened to this on audiobook. It is narrated by the author Chanel Miller herself, and it's heartbreaking. It is the most heartbreaking thing I have ever read in my entire life. I remember following this court case when I was in college, and listening to Chanel Miller's side of the story is incredible and aggravating. I mean, I was crying both like sad tears and angry tears, just all the tears with this book, but it is so, so good. And I think it should be required reading for anybody in college. I mean, especially people in college, maybe just anybody, but especially if you're going to college, I think you have to read this book. Question number 11 is a book that made you happy. A lot of the books I read this year made me happy. I typically read for kind of escapism and general mood uplifting, so most of what I read is happy, but something that really stuck out to me was Arsenic and Adobo, because even though it was pretty heavy subject matter, like it just made me happy. Like it's a very like cozy mystery, even though like multiple people are murdered. I don't know, I just thought it was like extra made me happy because we were dealing with a horrific murder case, but it still was like light and fluffy and fun. The next question is, what are some books you need to read before the end of the year? I mean, ideally my entire TBR shelf, but that's not gonna happen, so we'll just, you know, talk about a select few here. One of those being The Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton. I have read Congo and Dragon Teeth by Michael Crichton, which are kind of not really deep cuts. I mean, the Congo was a super popular Michael Crichton book, but like I haven't read any of like, I haven't read Jurassic Park and I haven't read The Andromeda Strain, which is like what Michael Crichton is like known for. So I figured I should read some of his more popular stuff. I'm gonna start with Andromeda Strain, see what I think, and then maybe move on to Jurassic Park at some point, but I got The Andromeda Strain from Thrift Books as like my free book credit. So this is one. Another one is actually a goal I have set for myself from the beginning of the year, but I have a goal every year to try to read at least one kind of classic book. I don't know, it's like, classic is a weird word to define, but I kind of go with my gut. And the classic I decided to go with this year is For Whom the Bell Tolls. Sorry, my grammar is not great. By Ernest Hemingway. So I have this really beautiful copy that I want to get to at some point. I think it's gonna be more of kind of a fall read though. Like, I've never read any Ernest Hemingway, but it just reminds me of the fall. The next one is one I recently picked up from a little free library in the neighborhood across the street from me. That is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. I've never read anything from Ursula Le Guin, but I've heard good things about this one specifically, and I think it'll be really cool. I mean, it's won a ton of awards, and I want to get more into sci-fi. And finally, one more I would like to get to this year is Puppy Show. I kind of forgot I even had this, and then I saw Noelle 7 Pages bring it up in one of her videos. I don't remember if she was doing this tag or if she was doing just something else about talking about books she wanted to read. And she brought up this one, and as she was describing it, I was like, wow, that sounds cool. And that book looks really familiar. So I have this book, I would like to read it, and I don't really remember what it's about, but I think it's a fantasy of some sort, and it's got a pretty cover. So that usually bodes well. The last question is, what is the best adaptation you have watched this year? I've only watched 2. I'm pretty sure, and that is Death on the Nile and Under the Banner of Heaven. And Under the Banner of Heaven is definitely the better of those 2. So I listened to the audiobook of Under the Banner of Heaven. It is a nonfiction book on the fundamentalist LDS cults in the Western United States and Canada, and then specifically on a case in Utah in the 1980s where some radicalized members of the LDS Church murdered their sister-in-law. And the book is very interesting, and the show is so good. Andrew Garfield plays the lead, and the show, I mean, it's mostly true, but it's definitely like dramatized, and it is very, very good. I mentioned this in another video I've done, but I would definitely suggest like reading / listening to the book in conjunction with the show, because the show, while fun to watch, is not super well edited. So like the emotions are there, but the continuity and knowing what's going on is not always there. So I definitely think these two go well together in tandem. So that is the tag. I'm really loving seeing some other people's videos with this tag, and I will probably be watching a bunch more as June starts to finish out. So please let me know, what are your best and worst books of this year so far? And any of the other questions, just comment down below. Let me know your thoughts and feelings. And thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you